Hey guys, Nick Horton here, the Iron Samurai, and this is another episode of Samurai Strength, Zen, and the Art of Weightlifting. In today's episode, we're going to talk again about the 21-day squat challenge and squat nemesis, diving deeper into those questions. As I said, we're in the middle of a series of episodes talking about nemesis and squatting, and specifically the 21-day squat challenge. We've been going back and forth between theoretical and practical style questions. That is like the deep stuff, the broad topics, and then the nitty-gritty topics. Today is a nitty-gritty, and the questions I got them written over here, I'm about to read them, are twofold. One, what do I mean when I say failure? Remember, the 21-day squat challenge literally has you going up to a fail squat every day for 21 days straight. To many people who are new to this kind of thing, that sounds fucking crazy. So they want me to define for them, rightfully so, what the hell I mean when I say fail. What does fail mean? We're going to get into that really clearly. And the second question is, should I do what's called Classical Nemesis, or should I do some of them new-fangled Nemesis WODs that are over there on Weightlifting Academy? And I'll give you an answer to that question and go a little further. This might be a hint. If you choose the new Nemesis WODs to do, then how should you go about that? Because it's not just one workout, it's a whole collection of workouts. What do you pick, when, etc. So we'll go over that also. So that's what's up for today's episode. But before we get into it, I want to remind you that every episode of Samurai Strength is brought to you by weightliftingacademy.com, which is your source for awesomeness. Which is a subtle way of saying you need to get your ass over there to weightliftingacademy.com and register for free to get a whole bunch of free goodies that are waiting for you on the inside, including an entire ebook. We got a 5-day how to snatch e-course. That's a video course. We've got all sorts of collections of articles, and we've got the training log section. We got a chat room. We got good people. We got a good community. It's a good thing going over at Weightlifting Academy. How many times can I say the word good? We are going to find out. At any rate, make sure you go to weightliftingacademy.com, sign up, register. It is free. Ain't no thing. And I will see you on the inside. So let's dive right into the very first question. What the hell do I mean by failure? Because I clearly want you to do that, fail, every single day for 21 days straight. And if you're really cool, you're going to keep on with it and you're going to fail even more after that. But what does that mean? What does failure mean? Well, that's important to understand, right? Because failure can mean so many different things, right? Like a failure of your constitution, a failure of your emotional sense, a failure of your technique, right? That could break down. A failure in the sense that you just missed the lift. A failure in the sense that you made the lift, but you didn't have the right smile on your face. And so you look like an angry bastard when you did. And I didn't like that. I wanted you to look like a really happy person. So you failed in that regard. So many possible ways in which you can fail. And whether we're talking about the old Classical Nemesis or our newfangled Nemesis WODs, the workouts, the squat workouts always look roughly the same in the beginning, in that you, at least in the macro, that you start out with basically nothing on the bar, and you keep ramping up the weight set after set after set until you get to basically a 1 rep max, and then you try again and then you fail. So that should give you some idea of what I mean. What I mean generally is one of two things. You either failed because you literally didn't make the weight and the barbell landed on the floor, or you failed because your technique looks like shit. Whatever one of those two things comes first. In the long run, as I discussed in the last section, a lot of what Nemesis is about is teaching you things that have nothing to do with your immediate squat gains and have everything to do with your long-term gains. So among these is your ability to fail gracefully. Really good squatters, they look perfect in their squat up until the moment when the barbell hits the ground. So it's not like they're squatting and their back's all like crunched over and they look like shit and like blood's popping out of their stomach, you know. There's a horrible shit the way that a lot of beginners do when they fail. They're up on their toes, you know, like just really bad looking squats. No, perfect squat. It looks great. You go all the way down. You come all the way, well, maybe not all the way. you fail, right? No big deal. The whole thing looked good. You just happened to fail. In the beginning, that's not the way it's going to be. You're probably going to flip it, actually. Beginners are going to fail in technique long before they fail because of their strength, because their strength gave out. That's okay. That's still considered a fail. It's more important that you learn how to fail with perfect technique and never having your technique break down under any circumstance than it is to get that extra couple of pounds today. That's fucking irrelevant. I don't care about your couple of pounds today, right? I care about your 100 pounds in the future or more. That's what I care about. That's never going to happen if your technique blows at the high weights. I care up to a point about how good your technique looks with light weights, only in so much as like you can't have technique that's good with heavy weights if you can't even do it with light weights. That's sort of obvious, but that's also not particularly complicated. After, a little bit of time of working at it, you're going to be, as long as your mobility is in line, you're going to be able to do really good looking squats with an empty barbell. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about, are you going to maintain that awesome technique even when the weight's brutally heavy? So heavy, in fact, you aren't even capable of making it. So all you've done is just kindly brought the bar off the rack, slowly and gracefully brought it down and dropped it on the floor, right? You sure as hell weren't going to make that weight, but you failed the right way. You failed with style. That's the key. Failure has to happen. That means you've pushed yourself hard enough that I know you actually pushed yourself hard enough. Remember what I said last time? I was talking about how you feel is a lie, that for a beginner, how they feel really is a lie. For a great athlete, how they feel is usually the truth. But you have to go from point A to point B through a whole lot of training of your brain. This is part of that training. Going to failure every day, whether it's a technical failure or maybe your technique was beautiful and it ended up being like a literal failure, teaches you day in, day out, where that line really was versus where you thought it was. Beginners almost always get these things wrong, right? They get in there and they are convinced, man, I feel like shit today. I'm not going to be able to lift very much weight. There's no way I'm going to make this weight. They go in, they hit a PR. Because I forced them. They were going to quit. But I forced them to lift. And so they go through this situation and they end up with a great new PR that they would not have gotten unless I forced them to get off the fucking lazy ass and actually squat. And the opposite happens too. They come in and they feel amazing and awesome and they're just rocking and they had like 14 Red Bulls and they are ready to go. They're going to squat like a motherfucker today and they can't even get past like 50% of their max. They just look like shit. Their technique is horrible and I cut them off. Their technique's not good enough. They were going to push it. How they felt was a lie. They were going to push that with bad technique, hideous technique, way past the point of safety and hurt themselves. Hell no, you ain't doing that in my gym. So I stop them. They learn something else. How I felt was a lie. That was reality. This weird, horrible technique, that was a fail. I don't get to do that. Even though I felt strong, physically strong enough to move the weight, I wasn't capable of moving the weight gracefully. And that's a fail. Either one's a fail. Bad technique or literally dropping the bar on the floor. But literally dropping the bar on the floor is not the big deal fail. That one, well, duh. You lifted more weight than you could lift today. That's great. That means you know where the end was today. That's a beautiful thing. You need to know that. That's just giving you some information that you can use, which I'll get into in a second when I go over the WODs and how it works. But if you are trying to go past the point where your technique's good, that's not good at all. That's horrible. That means your connection with reality is way the fuck over there. That's going to end up in one of two situations. Either you're not going to push yourself, like that's I don't feel so good today, I guess I shouldn't work out so hard, right? So that's the better of the two. At least you're not going to get hurt, but on the other hand, you're also not going to make any gains. This is the person who stagnates for years. We all know these guys, right? Maybe that's you. Stagnating in your weights for years. I can't tell you how many people come to me and like, I haven't gained more than a pound or two in my squat in 2 years. What the fuck? You've been training every day and you only gained 2 pounds in your squat in years? Are you a world champion? Because if not, That says something bad about your program, right? That means something serious needs to be changed, and it's probably not actually the program. It's probably your approach to the program. Wild possibility here. You're being a pansy, and we need to fix that. So that's one side. You're training yourself not to be such a pansy ass. Train harder. The flip side is the person who's the other guy, right? The Red Bull guy, who he's going to push it no matter what. He is going to do everything sloppy. His push-ups are sloppy. His pull-ups are sloppy. His squats are sloppy. Everything looks like crap. Horrible technique on everything. He presses out his snatches. Everything looks like shit. Would never pass in a contest in powerlifting or weightlifting. Ever. Absolute junk. There's a lot of those guys, right? But they're going to push through anyway. What happens to these people eventually? Injuries everywhere. Absolutely atrocious injuries that could have easily been solved if they had just the balls to stop themselves when their form broke down. And when your form looks like crap, you stop. That's your fail for the day. Because training your technique on a squat is substantially more important than training anything else until you have your technique. Here's the good news. Once you have that down, which isn't very hard, by the way, if you're actually strict about it, it'll take you like a week or two. The 21-day squat challenge is plenty of time. Everybody who goes through that the right way, by the time they're done, even if they didn't know how to squat before, is very good at squatting. They may not have a lot of weight on that bar just yet because they're just beginners, but they are really good at squatting. They put a barbell on their back. They know what they're doing. They did it for 21 days straight and did a ton of reps. That's a lot of practice. Some people who go through the 21-day squat challenge will honestly have accumulated in those 21 days more total repetitions than a lot of people put into squats in an entire year. That's not a hyperbolic statement. That's a literal fact. More reps in 21 days than a lot of people are putting into their squats in an entire year. No wonder they get so good so fast. So think about what that's going to do for you. That's just a boot camp for your technique on the squats. So once that's down, once you figured that out, now failure is going to be about literal failure, like you actually drop the bar on the ground. And I want to see that. I have a line that I say a lot, which is, I can't remember it. That's ridiculous. It's, if you ain't failing, you ain't trying. And what I mean by that is that you can't get to high levels of adaptation without high levels of stress. You can't get high levels of stress without pushing yourself past what you're comfortable with. You can't go past where you're comfortable regularly without failing most of the time, right? That's real life. In real life, if you're really working hard at something and you're doing it the right way, you're going to fail more often than you succeed. That's okay, because when you succeed, you're going to be going each time farther than the people who are over there too afraid to fail. And failure is something that you're just going to have to embrace. That's part of the deal. However, again, failure comes down to, first, technical failure. If technical failure comes, you're done. You're done. That's it. It doesn't matter what the exercise is. I don't care if it's a barbell curl. You ain't going to do it with stupid-ass technique. Then, once that's shored up, which should be very fast, it's really mostly like in your brain. Like, are you willing to stick with good technique or not? Once that's shored up and you are guaranteed to stick with good technique, then it's going to be literal failure, and you're going to fail that way all the time. Now for the big question. What do you choose? Classical Nemesis or the new-fangled Nemesis WODs? And the answer is, as you might expect, it depends. I'm going to give you 3 scenarios, and the answer to whether or not you fit into each one of these, whichever group you fit into, that's the one answer you should go with. So the 3 groups of people are true rank beginners in like hard-nosed squatting. The second group are non-beginners in hard-nosed squatting. There's beginners to Nemesis. And then there's people who have been doing Nemesis for a while. Maybe you've already done a full 21-day squat challenge, etc., and how you should approach that. So rank beginner, I should probably define that. When I say rank beginner, I don't mean you're new to exercise or even hard training. I just mean that when it really comes to squatting the way that a strength athlete should squat, which is what I teach, then that's where you're a beginner, right? Like, so I have a lot of people who come in who are CrossFitters. They're the majority of the people that I end up working with over time. And inevitably, most of them suck at squatting, even though they've been at it for a couple of years straight. And when I say suck at squatting, I really just mean their technique's not very good. it's kind of surprisingly all over the place. 2 straight years of training, and they're really not that technical on an exercise that is, quite frankly, not very technical. I mean, the squat's more technical than, like a barbell curl, but it's not more technical than a snatch. I mean, I get that. I get why that's something you're not going to have, but the squat, really? What that tells me is they're still a true rank beginner, meaning they haven't absorbed it. They haven't taken it seriously as a thing that needs to be dominated, as we'd say, like a snatch domination. It's not something that has been taken seriously. That I need to shore up this technique problem and be badass at it. The technique needs to be, boom, perfect. As perfect as I can make it. And once I do that, then we can move into the serious level. So if you're in that category, I usually advise that you do front squat only Nemesis with the classical version of Nemesis. Maybe. Even then, that might be a little bit strong, and I might say just do, if you go to our Nemesis WODs page, which is weightliftingacademy.com/Nemesis, if you go there, just do one of the ramps we call Montezuma, which is just 5s until you can't do 5s, 4s till you can't do 4s, 3s till you can't do 3s, 2s, 1s, etc. We call it Montezuma because it's like, big old nasty explosion of doom. That by itself, and don't do anything else, will often be enough for a rank beginner who is still practicing that technique. If you're pretty good with the front squats, maybe you do that with just the back squats for a while. Again, you can do 21-day squat challenges back to back. Maybe you take a 7-day break in between where you kind of keep it mellow on the squat. But it's not crazy to do this again and again and again, or multiple times a year. And each time you do it, you take it up another notch, and you take it up another notch, right? So that would be a track that you start with the front squat and you just do Montezuma, and that's it. And then you're good at that. Good. Your technique looks great. Then we can choose where you go from there. If it looks like your back squat's just as crappy as your front squat used to be, well, then we'll do it again, but we'll do it with the back squat this time. If you're pretty solid, actually, by doing all of that on the front squat, it basically carried over, and it looks like you're much better on the back squat. This is usually what happens, by the way. There's a lot of carryover. You get good at one of these lifts, really, really good. It'll probably carry over to the other, certainly in that direction, front to back, not so much from back to front. So that's why I like to start with the front squats for total rank beginners, because it's a little more complicated. It's also less scary, that failing thing. It's much less scary to fail on a front squat forward than it is to fail on a back squat backwards. Even though with truly big, heavy weights, I'd actually argue the back squat's just a touch safer. If you know what you're doing. If you're really good at failing with good technique, like I said before, graceful fails, back squat fails, I think are actually a little safer than front squat fails, just because of this whole, like the elbow has to fly from here all the way down to here and get those wrists all the way around the bar in order to finally get out away from the bar. Whereas with a back squat, you just release your fingers and whoop, there goes the bar. It's real simple. So there's that. Let's say you're not a true rank beginner like that though, where your technique just blows. And you got to be honest with yourself. I run everything under the honesty policy. A lot of programs out there, they aren't like that. They basically treat you like a baby. They treat you like you're a child. Because you're a beginner, they also treat you like an idiot. I don't do that. I accept that we're all beginners at something, right? But you're also an adult, and I trust you to be an adult about things. And so I fully expect that if your technique blows and you recognize that, you're not going to act like a fucking bro about it and pretend like it doesn't and just gun through things anyway, and then you get hurt, right? Like an idiot. A lot of adults act like that. It's really kind of pathetic, quite frankly. The world of strength sports and CrossFit and sports in general is full of like that bro, 14-year-old moron tendency. And I just come at it directly with the total expectation that people who work with me aren't going to be like that. And guess what? I think because I say that, because I'm very clear about it, it doesn't happen. We have no bros in my gym ever. I don't deal with bros, and Weightlifting Academy is not full of them. It's like bro-free zone. It's awesome. So if you're being honest with yourself and your technique just ain't pretty, then do what I just said. If you're a little beyond that though, and actually your technique's pretty good, and you have been squatting a while, you're just new to this form of squatting, you're new to this total frequency and crazy high volume squatting, in other words, a more advanced version of programming, then I think you have options. I would say either go straight up Classical Nemesis just to get your feet wet. It's a pretty good program. It's worked for a lot of people. However, I did change it for a reason. I changed away from doing Classical Nemesis every single day, boom, 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 strict, to what we do now on the Nemesis WODs page, because it's an improvement. It works for more people. That's the main thing, is that Classical Nemesis worked for a pretty good subset of people, and I'm very happy with that. But we saw, and some of the small group, the outlier group who was doing crazy good, right? They did crazy good regardless. But they probably would with anything, quite frankly. I mean, if they just did that level of work, that was the first time they did that amount of work. So that's why they got such great results. It's not, I don't think, because of the program itself. Which is, I suppose a relatively honest thing for me to say, that my program wasn't the magic pill. But I want a magic pill. I want Nemesis to be a magic pill. That's what I'm looking for. That's why I keep trying to develop this thing every, few months. Really, we're altering it. We're adding to it. We're experimenting with it in order to take this thing farther, as far as we can take it. So the new Nemesis WODs and the way we structured that is based on a lot of work with our own people and constant iteration. Try something, see how it goes. What works, we keep. What doesn't work, we dump. And then add in something new to try out, do the whole thing again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just keep going through that. Keep going through that. Lots of experimentation here. So what you're seeing, the newest stuff is the stuff that's been experimented on the most. It's sort of like with a piece of software, right? That, at least with a good company, like the software as it moves forward gets better and better and better. That's what you'd hope, right? Unless it's Windows, that's probably going to happen. It's going to keep getting better. That's especially true in the open source software world. So websites built with WordPress. WordPress is a great system because it just keeps getting better. In part because there's just literally thousands of people working on this stuff and pulling their data together, and you get this great, crowdsourcing thing. Wikipedia is the same way; it just keeps getting better. Nemesis basically functions under that, borderline open source mentality, where it's not just me all by myself sitting here, with a piece of paper coming up with this shit. It's me interacting with an enormous community of people all across the world who are constantly sending me what they're doing. And we're testing things out and changing things and seeing what happens. And next thing you know, everybody's benefiting from everybody else's experiences. So I strongly encourage you actually to not do the strict Classical Nemesis unless you're looking for like a getting your feet wet situation. So that's kind of that middle group where you're not so sure this is, like squatting every day is going to work out for you too well. The Classical Nemesis version is lower volume and lower overall intensity. The loads, that is your total weekly loads, are a little lower with that. So it's an easier routine to get into. It's also really sort of, step by step, clear, obvious, just do this same thing day in, day out. It's literally the same workout day in, day out. And so it's really clear what you're doing. So that can be really good for somebody who wants something written out for them. Now let's take the third group of people, which is like the opposite of the rank beginner. Your technique's solid. You're rocking on that. You've probably done a hell of a lot of squatting in your life, right? You were already doing that. Even if it's only been for the last, maybe you were a beginner 3 months ago, but man, you just killed it for the last 3 months, right? 3 months, we could take somebody to this level like nothing. For this kind of a person who's truly in that either intermediate or even pushing into like the advanced intermediate, we have people who have huge squats gaining on the Nemesis program even more. This is where, just like I was saying in the last video, you need to really focus in on that intuition. And that's what the new Nemesis WODs are all about. They give you kind of a cookbook recipe, choose your own adventure style game. That's basically what it is. It's like a game. Every workout you go in, you have like step 1, pick a ramp. That's it. Pick a ramp, any ramp. You do that, you see how you feel. You don't have to predetermine what your WOD's going to be. because we have our normal intensifiers. That's the key to the workout is the intensifiers. Which one of those do you pick? Well, I can't tell you that up front. You can't even tell you that up front. You're going to have to decide after you've done your ramp. And the people who are doing the best, the people who are making the fastest progress, that's what they're doing. They have no idea what they're going to do when they walk in the gym. They just know they're going to do a nemesis. You don't want a nemesis. That's fucked up. A nemesis. I did it again. Nemesis focused WOD. I don't know what that means. It's weird. And they're going to listen to themselves, be very intuitive about it, and just try to accumulate as much work as they possibly can using this templated system that we have. So it's a template, but the details of it, you're going to make up yourself. With the key idea being, when you walk out of the gym, can you honestly say, I did as much work today as I honestly could do? If the answer to that is no, turn around, get back in the gym, put that barbell back on your back, and do some more squatting. If the answer is yes, good. And inevitably, because the goal isn't like I clocked off, right? Like getting good grades. I did my homework. I don't actually know what I did. I just filled in the answers from the back of the book, right? And I took the test, but it was a really easy test. And the teacher's pretty easy, and it's a really easy grader. But I got an A. Look at me. I got an A. How come I didn't get the results I wanted, though? I got an A. That's the way a lot of people approach a lot of programs. They're just going through the motions. And they got an A because they, filled in all the blanks correctly. That's not what I want. The Nemesis WODs done correctly are so intuitive. You're just shifting and bobbing and weaving in different directions throughout the workout, essentially hunting for whatever's going to be more work for you in that moment. So if you need to add more weight, that's what you do. If you need to pick an intensifier that's just brutal today, you got to do that. Other days, though, there are, of course, going to be those times when you have to take the smart approach where you say, if what I'm doing today is going to actually fuck up my ability to work out tomorrow, I can't do it. And that's a big rule of mine. Never do anything today that's going to ruin your ability to work out tomorrow. In other words, injury style stuff, right? Or if you're really sick, you got the flu or something, then, maybe put a barbell on your back, an empty one, and go up and down a couple times and call it good. But don't worry about it, because if you fuck that up, you can't work out tomorrow. I'd rather you get healthy so that you can work out tomorrow. That's more important. But barring those crazy situations, most of the time you can do more work than you think you can. And if you allow yourself to hunt for more work, that works out really good. In another episode, I'll talk about the idea of hunting for PRs in different rep ranges. And that's really getting much more advanced into the Nemesis concept. And when we go further into the 21-day squat challenge online contest and class, which I think you should join, by the way, that's going to be a place where I'm going to go into this stuff even deeper than I'm going into it here. We're going to deep dive, and it's going to be interactive so that you can actually interact with me as you're going through it. And Tamara and I will guide you down the path to ensure that you're doing this the right way. But I do want to, in these videos, get as deep as I can, at least on a conceptual level with you, what you can do that will help you be closer to the people who are getting the greatest success on this style of squat programming. Because it's like I said, yesterday, it's not intuitive to a beginner, and yet sneakily enough, it's about being intuitive. You just have to get to a point where your intuitions are in line with reality. And by that, I mean the reality of your body and the reality of the program and the reality of the barbell and all of that other shit. All right, so that's enough of that for today. Again, to recap, failure comes down to either technical failure. That's a deal breaker. You absolutely cannot have that. You break down your technique, done. Or, as you get a little better, that's something that's going to happen far less. I encourage you to go through my other YouTube channel, by the way, and just look at how people fail. They fail very nice. It's lots of fails. I post up fails all the time. But they fail in a way that is graceful. The other type of failure, obviously, once you're past that, is true failure. The barbell lands on the ground. Yes, if you're able to do that with good technique, I want you to drop the bar on the ground every single day. That's how I know for sure you went heavy enough. Then you get to do all the rest of the work, which is the real work of the program. As far as Classical Nemesis or the new Nemesis WODs, in almost every situation, people who are coming at what it is we're doing, I would say, because they're kind of self-selected as people who are pretty into squatting, I would say do the new Nemesis WODs. That's the way to go. But with a focus on intuition, if you're just getting started, then either only do one of the ramps like Montezuma, and that's it every single day for 21 days. Or if you're a little more advanced, do Classical Nemesis. It's got lower volume than our new programs, lower total loads than our new programs, but it's still astronomically higher than what you're probably doing. It is still true to say most of the people who do Nemesis get more total volume and more total load in one day than most people on most programs are getting in an entire week. So is it really that shocking that the results are so astronomical? No. The workload is astronomical. Of course you're going to get some kind of great backlash from that. I mean, assuming you don't just explode because of the awesomeness and glitter flying all over the place, your squat's going up. And that's all there is to it. You can't put in that kind of work that's done with good technique and in a smart way and not see good results. It really just comes down to whether or not you're getting that intuition or not. So, yeah, attack it, do it, fail, because if you ain't failing, you ain't trying. All right, see you guys next time. Don't forget to go to weightliftingacademy.com and sign up. Registration's free. Kaboom, kabam, and other weird shit. Lord.